Also known as Duck Corella.
I refuse to answer on the grounds of main intent to
You
criminate.
got any business?
I refuse to answer on the grounds of intent to criminate.
You have any profession?
I refuse to answer on the grounds of main intent
You
to
have any
criminate.
occupation?
I refuse to answer on the grounds of main intent
Are
to
you a
criminate.
known racketeer?
I refuse to answer on the grounds of main intent to criminate.
What's her name, Winkleman, of the Elizabeth
You ever
Police?
get any money from Costello?
No.
And did you ever get any money from Meyer Lansky?
I never got money from any of those fellas.
None of those
None
fellas?
of those fellas. None of these that I've been reading about, or none that I knew. They never gave me anything.
None of the Fichettes?
No.
You
I
think-
don't even speak to the. I mean, I met that Charlie once or twice. I don't even.
Welcome, folks. Welcome to the Smoke Show. Our new night, Sunday evenings, is when we're going to start doing this to open us up to do our night court 5 nights a week. So I want to welcome everybody that's here. Tonight, we're going to talk about pork. And to be more specific, we're going to talk about pork butts. One of our contributors and our co-host, John Cox, out of North Carolina, he fulfilled his North Carolinian duty, and he has now smoked him some pork butt. I think they pulled it off as some pulled pork in the end. But we're going to go over what he used and what method he used and maybe how it turned out. We're also going to talk about another brisket that Big Ron did. Big Ron did a brisket in the great state of Florida. And I believe this was on a pellet grill. So it's essentially microwaved, but he's pulling it off. I mean, from pictures, folks, it looks like a smoked brisket. So I'm not going to beat it up too much. But let me introduce everyone. We've got John Cox, North Carolina. He's also known as 2A Talk and Tactical on every platform, but X is where we see him. We've got Big Ron. Big Ron on X is my co-host on the Night Court Show. Also an avid smoker, probably the best pellet smoke product I've ever seen. I've seen from Big Ron, so I'll give him some kudos there. We've got Bruce Wayne, co-host out of Night Court with us here tonight, out of Idaho. He's also a pellet smoker. He's catching up. I can't say that I can dog or criticize any contributions that he's put on the show. And we've got Jason out of Minnesota. Jason out of Minnesota, fool you. You wouldn't think he knows anything about smoking anything. But I heard from a little bird that he might have had a hand to play in some of the prep for this pig butt smoking went on in North Carolina. So I'm going to give him some credit as well. But John, tell us about what you started with, and you did this on a regular side mount or offset smoker, right?
I did. So I started off with a 7-pound pork butt, and I kind of figured I was going to lose 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. So I was going to end up with about 6 pounds of meat. It was supposed to feed 6 or 7 people. Well, apparently when people got the word what I was doing, their mouth started watering. Can I come? Can I come? Can I come? So as you can see in the photo there, my girlfriend's aunt graciously went to the store and got the one to the right. It's about, I think it was about 9.5 pounds. She also caught it on sale, so it was, that worked out good. So anyway, so yeah, I just went ahead and done 2. So never having done one before, needless to say, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So relied on the trusty internet, because everything you read on the internet is true. Still really, I mean, I wanted to do this one right.
Okay, well let me pause you on your narrative there. What did you learn on the internet that was an advantage to you? You think?
Well, it really wasn't an advantage. I saw a lot of, you need to do this. No, you need to do this. No, you're doing it wrong. You need to do it this way. A lot of back and forth, because everybody's recipe or way of doing things is the correct way. So I really didn't gain anything. I did find out, or I did learn what y'all had already told me on the temps. So that was consistent, but I reached that.
So you started out with a single pig butt, realized there was some the numbers increased, mouths to feed increased, so you jumped to 2. Now I
Yep.
see in here you've got some rubs. So you did a dry rub on this. Let's talk before we talk about the rubs themselves. What do we do here on
I
these?
did. So as we all know, there's a ton of rubs out there. There's homemade rubs, and there's companies that make rubs. So our good friend Jason had mentioned before about Meat Church. Had messaged him about a week or two ago about what he uses, and he put me on to the Meat Church website. It is a very informative website. Um, so they've got a bunch of different variations. Still wanted to make sure I got the right one. I texted him. I said, "What do I need to get?" So he told me. He said, "Do the honey hog barbecue. Throw it on there." As you can't really tell. Maybe at the top you can see. I probably used maybe a third of that bottle on both shoulders, or I did the sides, top, bottom, everything. Uh, then he told me that after that kind of bonded to the meat, then just lightly sprinkle the gospel on top of it. Now the honey hog barbecue is like a lighter rub. So when I put the gospel on, it's a darker rub, almost like a paprika color. So when I put that on, you could tell, and I did exactly what Jason said do. Just lightly put it on there. That's why you're seeing the darker color. That's the gospel. That lighter color you see over on the left one. That's some of the honey barbecue or honey hog barbecue still showing. So I did both, and then I also made an injection and I injected them.
Okay, so you did both the dry rub and you injected as well.
Sure
So
did.
a marinade. What did you inject on the marinade?
So on the marinade, I did 50/50. Apple juice. Well, I'll take that back. We'll call it 50/50. Apple juice, 50% uh, orange juice, and then I put maybe 2, maybe 3 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar.
Okay, so why did you choose apple juice and orange juice?
So the wood chips that I used was also apple. I am a huge apple fan. When I got the rubs, I opened them up and was smelling them, and I was trying to picture um, these two pieces of meat with all of these flavors entwined in one another. So I wanted a little bit of everything, and having done a little bit of meat before, playing around with some injections. I'm the kind of person that I want to taste whatever my rub or seasoning is on the first bite, but I'm really not a big fan of just the regular bland meat taste on the inside. So I wanted some taste on the inside as well. Because that's a thick piece of meat. I didn't think the rub would make it all the way through.
Okay, so that drove you to apple juice, apple cider, and orange juice to inject on the interior.
Yeah, and I also use that as a spritz.
Same combination as the spritz.
Yes.
Okay. So you said you use apple wood as your chip. What was your prep on your smoker? Putting that together.
So on the smoker, I had seen it the other day and I kind of just glanced over it, but when I went and got the wood chips, so Kingsford also makes briquettes that are specifically made for long cooks and smokes. Um, it's not that really much more expensive than the regular match light. The only difference I could tell was number one, it doesn't have that match light smell, so obviously it doesn't have the chemical in there that lets you light almost instantly.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. So we're not
Yeah,
talking about a regular briquette that you'd cook on over the grill. This is it's advertised looks like long cooks and smokes, a Kingsford product for low and slow briquettes. So this keeps a ember kind of fire burning for longer periods of time to make your heat more consistent is what you were thinking when you bought this or what?
yeah. probably temperature wise 3-to-1. Those briquettes, I probably only used a third of those briquettes compared to the regular Kingsford Matchlight briquettes when I've started fires before. So you don't use it near as much also, and they last longer.
But we don't have that starter fluid or lighter fluid,
Nope.
petroleum smell or taste on this product.
You don't smell anything. The only if you smell anything, it's I guess it's got some kind of a wood composite built in or made into the briquettes. But no, you don't smell anything. You don't taste anything. That is the go-to if you're not using a pellet smoker,
Okay.
in my opinion.
So you started your fire with this Kingsford product, right?
Yes.
How long did you let it burn before you put any of your apple wood on?
So interestingly enough, it does take this stuff a little bit longer to get that grayish ash look. When that look you're looking for when you say, okay, my briquettes are ready. It does take it a little bit longer. So I'm gonna say maybe 10, 12 minutes, just under 15 minutes. It was ready to go. And it was hot. That is a very hot briquette.
And you feel like there's an advantage in the heat?
I do.
Tell me how you think the advantage. Where you thought I've never used a product like this. I'm trying to kind of
Yeah,
gauge
so
what it is.
I
Other than
think I
it's
I
very
think I had
good.
asked
I
you or
mean,
somebody
it
on one
is.
of the earlier shows, do you need to preheat your smoker? I'm OCD about preheating ovens and stuff like that. So to answer your question, um, while it did take the briquettes a little bit longer to be ready, as hot as they are, I was literally watching the temperature gauges go up, and it kind of sped things up, is the way I look at it, to be able to go ahead and put the meat on.
Okay, so I guess it burns at a more constant rate, giving it more consistency than
So,
wood fire, where it'll flare up when it burns and drops in temperature when it goes to coal. So you're constantly backing up and down. Is that what I'm thinking, or what?
yeah, it's a whole lot more consistent. It's easier to manage. Um, I I did not see anything or find anything that I don't like about that product.
Okay, it sounds like an arrow that's going to go in your quiver for smoking.
Yes.
And there we are. This is a live picture from John Cox smoking.
Yep. That was about 1:30 this morning, I think. 1:30, 2 o'clock.
Okay, so what temperature were you looking for before you put your pork roast on? And did you give your pork roast a pre-rest? Were they room temperature when they went on, or what do you think that was?
So what I did when I did the smoke at another location, I already had my cooker there, but I pulled them out of the refrigerator uh, while I was getting some other stuff ready. I kind of let them come to air temperature, so to speak, uh, probably 20 or 30 minutes, and then I diverted my attention. That's when I started putting the rubs on. Jason had said, put your rubs on. I think it was like 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes or something like that before. I'm one of those that I think in that case, longer is better. I don't know that that's true, but that's just me. So I put it on about 40 minutes before. In the meantime, the smoker was coming to temp, and I
Okay,
was looking.
actually, I want to ask Jason on that. Why rub it so close to smoke time? Do you want to give that some time to bake, or the salt a chance to penetrate in the meat? Jason, what's your theory on that?
No, I kind of the opposite. I usually let mine sit for about an hour. Sometimes when I'm in a hurry, I'll put it on, get the grill up to temp, and then I'll smoke it. But if I have the time, I'll let that rest on the meat for a good an hour to let it adhere as best as possible.
Okay, so when did you inject it? Did you inject it at the same time too, John?
About 20 or 30 minutes after I was finished with all the rubs, I injected it.
Okay, so this didn't have any prep time, for like any marinating or setting or anything that was going to uh, take some time. So you set it out, you get it down to, as you said, air temperature. I'm assuming ambient temperature, somewhat room temperature. You
Yeah.
inject it. You base it with the two rubs, and then you go to smoke because your smokers up and firing up right now. All right.
You are correct.
Well, and let's just take a look at that. And there we are. That looks like you've been on for a couple of hours at least. It looks like I'm seeing some bark uh, grow there.
Yeah.
What do you think? What point in the smoke was this?
That was about an hour. No, it was an hour and 20 minutes in, and that was one of the things that I don't know why. Uh, but that was one of the things I was impressed with was that the bark transformation was starting very early on this.
Did you do anything to increase your draft?
I just opened that little flap on the chimney. I had the damper about halfway open, and we've got one of those. It's probably about a 14 or 15-inch floor fan. I just had it just to move some air because I had set up like a little 10 by 10 pop tent. But the where I set it up, a little bit of that air was blowing into the damper. So it was in a certain way, it was kind of forcing that airflow through. Now I did that
You
most
definitely
of
had
the
good
night.
airflow. That would explain bark formation. Now, Jason, have you done this exact process that John's talking about before?
Yeah, I didn't inject though. John added the injection part, but yeah, pretty much the exact same.
And do you like to see a bark formation on it like we're seeing here? 2 hour, what, 1.5, 2 hours in, I think is what John is saying.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. Let's go to
And that may be because of the rub. I'm hooked on that on Meat Church.
oh, you think the bark comes from the rub?
I do because of the color. I mean, I may be wrong because at this point I had not even spritzed it. All I had done was put the rub on and inject it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I think sugar will enhance a bark. Is that correct?
Sugar
Yeah.
can enhance a bark, but the process will go if you put nothing on it. You just get it to temperature and have a good evaporation. It's the juices that are bubbling out of the meat that evaporate. In other words, they leave, but all the solids that are mixed in with them are now they come from the center of the meat to the outside of the meat, and that's just where they stay. So this builds up a layer of bark. We like sugars that bind with these proteins. It makes the particles larger so that you get a thicker bark. We like rubs because it does seem to give it some taste to it and smoke absorption, and also once again mixes with the juices, larger particles, so that it builds up and makes the bark. But the bark, the best I can tell, and all the research that I've done, and all my personal cooks, is that the bark will form without anything there at all. Now, is it a quality bark you really want to eat? I don't know. Um, because I've never actually done it with no seasoning whatsoever. I've never had the time just to waste to see how that turned out if it's something I didn't want to eat. Let's look at temperatures. What are we looking at here, John?
All right, so there, with this thermometer, you can set your temperature. So I had set it for 200. This was 5 hours and 45 minutes or 44 minutes in, and I was up to 126 degrees on that one. Which is, about a little over half where I needed to be. So I figured a 9 hour, not, or I'm sorry, I figured a 11, 12 hour smoke. So right there, we might as well say we're halfway in, and I'm a little more temperature wise. I'm a little more than halfway of where I wanted to be. So I was very pleased with that.
And you attribute the Kingsford product as helping you maintain temperatures
Oh, most
this tight.
definitely,
Okay.
most definitely.
So we're looking at 126 internal temperature. That's inside of the meat. That's great. That means we're not overcooking. We're just absorbing smoke, and it looks like we're on hour 5. Is that right? Almost hour 6.
Yep.
And your chamber temperature is at 200.
Yeah. No. So on my chamber temperature, one thing I did notice, I was a little bit aggravated. So I put two thermometers on the hood of my smoker. The one to the right, which is closer to the firebox, was running about 25 degrees higher than the one on the left. So having two pieces of meat, I was, in the early stages, I was like, all right, how am I going to address this? Because it did not matter what I did. And I tried everything I know to try. I could not get them any closer. So I put the bigger piece of meat to the right, because obviously it's going to take a little bit longer to come to temp. So I think it was about, it may have been right about that time. It may have been 6 hours, 6.5 hours, or something like that. I slid both pieces of meat a little bit further to closer to the firebox.
Can I make a suggestion for your next cook there, John?
Absolutely.
Swap the gauges.
Okay.
Move your left one to the right and your right one to the left just to verify you don't have a bad gauge.
No, but you know what, guys, I'm going to expect to see a difference in that temperature. I think it's naive to believe that the entire smoking chamber is exactly the same temperature. You got heat that's flowing through one side, it's flowing across, drafting across it, going out the stack to the other side. Near the stack, the heat is going to condense because it's going from a large area, but it's got to get down small to get out that small hole. So the heat's going to condense there. You'll have a hot spot near the stack. I do expect to see a hot spot coming out of the smoke box. So I think you just got to know where it's at and
I don't
work with it.
I don't disagree with that. I think you're right, but that's kind of a big swing. And it shouldn't take him that long to swap the gauges around. I'll just verify it for the next smoke.
Yeah. Now I do have one of those thermal temperature gauges, the digital ones that I used with a friend of mine drag racing to check tire temps and stuff like that. But and it was, so I stuck it in there, and it was off maybe 4 or 5 degrees from what the gauge was showing, but it was consistent with what the gauges was showing. But I will try that.
It's a good idea. I don't have a no. I do have a thermal on the truck. That's a good idea. I should bring mine home and try that.
And another thing,
But you
I
guys
forgot.
remember, your thermal temperature is not taking air temperature; it's going to take a surface temperature. So
Right.
it won't tell you what the air temperature is inside.
And I forgot to mention also, when you take, at least on a pork butt, I guess you do it on a brisket too. I did. Dry your meat off. Um, Take a paper towel and get that blood water or whatever you want to call it, dry it. I was actually kind of surprised that once I did that and then put the rub on, you could actually see the rub start turning wet. I mean, it was pulling the moisture out and adhering.
Oh, 100%. I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't covered that in the smoke show before to completely dry your meat off 100% till get it
Yep.
as dry as you can before you season it.
I think we did that with my chicken. I
Okay.
did. I dried it off, and I think we discussed it during that show. But yeah, definitely dry everything off, man. Whatever you brine, whatever you do, yeah, damp it off with a paper towel, get all that stuff off there, and that's perfect, man. It looks great, John. Looks fantastic, brother.
I was pleased with it the whole night,
None of
and
y'all hadn't even seen the finished product yet. Y'all just saw it at what
I
hour
think
and a
that
half
was one
in.
thing that kind of kept me up all night on top of maintaining and trying to figure out the temperature. Was I was I was tickled with this, and that may sound nerdish, but I was very happy with how this process went.
Okay. Let's talk about drying. One of the reasons that you want to salt it, I think you salt it the day before you're going to smoke, is that the salt will draw out a lot of the moisture. But absolutely, you want to dry the meat with paper towel or whatever means prior to adding any seasoning and going to smoke. And that holds true with all meats, whether it be beef, pork, fowl, poultry. It doesn't matter. I can't say fish for sure, but I imagine it would be for fish as well. That because I've never actually smoked fish, but I think it would be that for as well. You don't want this moisture there. It's going to inhibit your bark formation. It's gonna add you some other problems with literally where instead of your meat cooking and smoking, there are some instances if you got enough water there that you could actually get a boiling process that happens. So you want to try to pull out as much moisture as you can with the salt. Two, you want to pat that dry before you start adding product to it. So 100%, that was a good move there. My apologies if we hadn't covered that before. I kind of thought we had, but maybe not with some detail. Let's take a look at it. This looks like just before you coming off the smoke. Is that true?
Yeah, that was about an hour before I took it off, if I remember right.
Okay. All right, the other smokers, give us some judgment. What are you seeing on this? It's just about done.
I'm seeing good color, nice glazing of the surface for the natural sugars coming out. No pooling of liquid. It looks like good edge color, good bark building on the sharp edges there. I think he did a really good job.
Vet?
It looks like I need to make a trip out to our brother over there in the Carolinas. That looks fantastic. No, I mean the color's great, just like what Ron said. The bark's looking great, and yeah, no, it looks like you could just cut off that little tip to our very closest right side, and it'd just be fantastic. No, it looks great, John.
That may have been or may not have been done, but
I'm ashamed if it wasn't done. I would have that's your penance, or that's your reward for sitting up 12 hours doing it. You get to cut off a piece and taste it. Bruce Wayne, what do you think about that? Do y'all even do pork in Idaho? Do you have pigs there?
We do. I'm not a huge fan of pork, but that does look amazing. I would scarf that down. Like everyone's saying, that color looks perfect. Is that glaze? Is that something you did special, or is that just the way it smokes?
no. So actually, when I think I had just spritzed it, to be honest with you, I was having to spritz it about every 30 minutes, 30, 45 minutes, something like that.
Okay.
That looks fantastic.
James.
What, me?
Yeah, brother, your comments on this pork butt.
My experience with smoke is very little. So it looks good to me. I'd eat it.
So it looks appealing to you visually.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jason, throw some critique.
John, is this your first pork butt ever?
Yes.
Dude, you nailed it. This looks phenomenal. Nice job.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my first one.
Very well done.
Okay, now we want to look at, he sent me a picture of the temps. Let's take a look at the temps. Stop screen. Enough clicks, I can get it there. So you pulled it off internal temperature 198?
Yep, that's when I pulled it.
Okay. I'm good with that with pork. I think it might be a little high for, let's say, a brisket, large piece of beef, maybe. But I think I'm good with that with pork. I might even be okay with like 205, 210, even internal temperature with that. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I typically go to about in between 203, 208. 205 is kind of my pull zone. But 198 is fine.
For pork, though, we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, I think that is good. Now, let me ask you, John, did you wrap this? Was there any point that you wrap this, or did you cook it naked the entire time?
No, right when I had wrapped it probably 10 minutes before I took that temperature. So I took
how long
the
was your wrap
temperature.
time?
Yeah, I took the temperature and it was like 195, 196. So I got my pans out, I got my foil out, and by the time I got my gloves on and all that, got ready to pull it, I thought, well, let me stick it one more time. It was 198. I said, all right, it's coming off. And that's the underside. That was the part sitting on the grate.
Okay, so you didn't get you did wrap it, or you did not wrap it?
I did wrap it, and then then I let it rest.
How long did but you didn't cook wrap it?
No, no, I did not.
So you just wrap the rest.
Yep.
Okay. So what we're looking at here is one in the pan, and you're saying this is the underside, and you see the grill marks,
Yep,
right?
that's the underside.
Okay. Uh, not horrible.
And you can see up there that bone at the top, like the meat was pulling away from it.
Okay. How did you debone it? Did you let your patron or your guest debone it? Or did you debone it yourself?
No, I did. So I had the wise idea that I was going to. I bought a kit, and in that kit it had those claws that you can, you know, shred meat with. I've never used them before. So if anybody wants a set of claws, send me your address. I'll send them to you. Because it did not work well. So I just ended up. I took a knife, very sharp knife, and I just started cutting chunks off, and then pulled it. Got most of the fat. There was actually some people that wanted some fat with theirs, but now I did shave the fat cap off. What was there, I did go ahead and shave that off, but then I just pulled it.
Did you not get a lot of that rendering? It was still there at the end of the cook.
Very, very, very little. Um, not much at all.
You might in the future maybe increase your chamber temperature 5 or 10 degrees to see if you get that to render down. You really want to see it rendered down, but yeah, I agree with you taking it off. Man, I think they call it pulled pork because you put on some gloves and you reach your hands and then you pull the pork apart, right? And that like a
Yeah.
normal
So
arm.
interestingly enough, so after I pulled it and wrapped it, pulled it, whatever you want to say, having been up at this point, I had been up 29 hours. So I went to take a nap, set my alarm clock. I forgot to turn it on. I ended up sleeping about almost 3 hours. So when I got up, I went and unwrapped it, and I could not hold on to it. It was still that hot on the inside. Um, so, but it was, I mean, it was still manageable, but I didn't use gloves. I just washed my hands and
Okay, so this is how you served it to your guests. Is like a pulled pork. Will you make a sandwich out of that to put it
yep,
on your plate with?
yep, there were, yeah.
Okay.
As I was pulling it, I had 5 people standing in line. So I
And I want
pulled.
to. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish up.
No, I was just gonna say, as I was pulling it, I was putting it on bread or I was putting it on a plate.
Yeah, you're a full service smoker. I like that. Revolt Republic, my apologies, sir. I missed your comment there, but he's asking, was a water pan used? You
Yeah, I
use a
put
water pan inside the chamber?
yeah, if you go back to some of those earlier photos, yeah, I put 3 pans under there. Um,
And you
and I
actually had water inside those pans?
Oh, no, 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 I'm sorry, I thought he meant the tight pan. No, I didn't have water, I just had empty pans to catch dripping.
Okay. There are folks that will put water in the chamber to keep it plenty of humidity in it. I'm not one that does that. My father used to do it. I don't know if I've seen a big difference either way, but it's not something I actually do. But Revolt, if you'd like to make another comment on that, I'd like to hear it. And folks, we've also got Brent in Canada says that he's at a cabin smoking a pork loin as we speak. It sounds like so that's good. He also says that the apple wood chips are nice, and uh, s- says he's got a salmon that's going to be smoked later this week. I'd like to hear about all that. That sounds like some good stuff going on in Canada. Although I will doubt uh, Canadian smoke pretty much any day of the week, but I haven't tasted it, so I don't know. But once again, in Texas, I'm not gonna rant and rave for uh, a Canadian smoke. But man, this looks like it was a pretty good deal. Let's you have any takeaways from it? If I said, "Hey, I'm going to do a pork, but I've never done it before," is there anything that you haven't said here that you would add to it? And by the way, folks, if you can't see, maybe I can increase this. Take a look at the see the smoke ring in here. Once it's torn apart, you can still see the elements of the smoke ring in the meat. That says that he definitely achieved some smoking. Now, let me ask you this: how deep was the smoke taste? A pork roast is pretty thick. So getting that smoke deep down into the center cuts, were you still able to do that?
Yeah, so I actually, I did not know you was going to ask me that, but I was interested. Like I'm invested in this. I wanted to know what I had produced. So I took a piece of meat. I actually cut a piece, a chunk, that had the smoke ring in it. And when I bit, now to answer your question, maybe a quarter of an inch, maybe a little more, a hint of it. But then, what I actually achieved or was trying to achieve, then I actually got a little bit of the orange juice, apple juice taste inside the meat further down.
So you actually had apple juice flavor inside the meat?
Just a like a hint of like apple. But you could tell it wasn't the smoke apple, it was from the injection.
I'm going to have to ponder on that for a moment. I'm just not sure how I feel about that. If I want to taste apple in it, but man, it looks like a huge success, and I'm with Jason. It's a surprise that it is your first one. You actually may have a knack in smoking, maybe a gift there. But I will say that you've put in the maximum effort on these. I'm impressed with the bark that you achieved on it. That's with pork. It's actually harder to do than beef, just because I think the way the fat content is. But you developed the bark early, and it finished out well. Uh, what was the flavor in the bark? Now you used two different types of rubs. Could you tell a difference in the flavor of the bark itself, or was it just a smoke?
Uh, Interestingly enough, I could taste a little bit of the, and I'm trying not to use this word too much, but another hint of the honey. And then there was some other interesting flavors that it all mingled very, very well. But I couldn't really play because I did not read the ingredients in each one, so I don't know where, this taste come from, or where this taste or where that taste come from, which rub. But they all mingled very well, and either they made their own flavor, or they come in at different times while you were eating it.
Hey, John, first off, how did it taste? I mean, what was the reaction?
Uh, I'm gonna toot my own horn. So I actually got a call a while ago, and I was told that this is from an older woman. So I think she's 64, 65. She said, "I've eaten a lot of barbecue in my life, but this right here was probably the best I have ever eaten. It was the tenderness was exactly on point. The flavor was there. She didn't even use any sauce. Um,
That's the test. If they don't put
e-
sauce on, you
Everybody,
did it
and I
right.
told them, I said, be honest with me. That I need to know. It's like they want another one already. They want another one.
If you do another one, I would recommend try the honey hog hot. If you do two, do one of the regular, then try the honey hog hot. It's
Okay,
not like it's not over the top hot, but
right.
it just kind of lets you know it's there.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, everybody, like, it wasn't just a no, it was good. It was good. It was like this was phenomenal, and it was for somebody else. Somebody else, we used it for their birthday party also, but it was like it was phenomenal. It was spot on. Thank you. I mean, it was comments like that, and that really made me. I mean, it made me feel good, obviously, but I mean, I'm tickled with it. But I got to give kudos to y'all because I have no idea what the hell I was doing. If it hadn't been for y'all, I probably wouldn't even have a smoker, uh, you know, at all anyway. So I owe it all to y'all
Well,
also.
let's give it a year to see if you still think that's a good thing we did for you or a curse that we did to you. It's going to be hard to tell because once you catch it, it's hard to get away. Hey, Revolt Republic says that in his vertical smoker, he's noticed that the temp is better uh, distributed uh, with a water filled pan. You know what? I might be able to see that. I can see the reasoning in behind that, Republic. I don't use a vertical smoker. I'm not a big fan on the heat. I think it heat's more difficult to control in those versus a offset or a side mount smoker like John's using, and this one that I prefer as well. But that's you know what? I'm making a note on that. I'm going to do a little research on that. You may have a point there, Revolt. Before I thought you were like, just one of those water guys, but No, you actually may have some science in what you're talking about. So I'm going to look into that, and I'll have some comments on that on next week's show. Water in the
Tell you
tank.
what, John, it is a bug. I got it too, man. Like I just came back from vacation. I can't wait to get started back up. I kind of feel a little twitch coming on. I haven't smoked in about a week, so I got a little itch coming. So I got to get started. I'm gonna do some peppers and stuff, and definitely another brisket. But man, you're a knack, man. You got a knack at it, dude. Looks great. Looks fantastic. I
Well,
felt
I
the
have
same
been
way when I
asked.
did the bird.
Well, I have been asked to smoke some green bell peppers, stuffed bell peppers.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
got
you
some
with some
growing in my garden. I'm gonna use that up, man. I got some poblanos and some jalapeno peppers in my garden. I'm gonna smoke, and I'm gonna go ahead and go to the store. And I used up all my brisket already smoking, man. So I gotta give me some more, man. But yeah, dude, you got the bug just like me, and curse them and also bless them for giving it to us, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would not be here if it wasn't for this group. Seriously.
I tell you what, that's the reason we started to do this. I think we talked about it kind of off channel on kind of giving, I was just giving Vet a hard time about what he called smoking, which was really cooking hot dogs on a grill. And it kind of buffalo or spread out from there. But that's kind of the purpose of this show is the guy that hasn't smoked before has an interest in it. I think we can give you the tips and techniques that you need to get you through and successful on the first few smokes. So you start putting it together yourself and getting your own techniques and your own tips and things that you like. But and let me also say that let's don't go. We've got range minded with us, guys. My dog is playing with his bone and he's lost his ever living mind over here for a minute. So if you hear the rumbling around, I'm not being assaulted. It's this dog playing with his toy. But that's the idea of this show is that we can help somebody that's a novice or beginner smoker to get started and start running through and putting together actually good smokes. But also, let me say, it doesn't have to be a brisket, doesn't have to be a pork butt, doesn't have to be a large piece of meat that you're always putting because this shit's expensive. To be quite honest with you, get you a pork loin, get you sorry about that. Get you some smaller cuts of meat. You can still smoke them. It doesn't take as much time. Pork loin is another good one to smoke. I would smoke it very similar to the way Jason and John collaborated on this pork butt. I think the pork loin would turn out maybe slightly a little bit better. Um, and also vegetables. Don't be afraid to smoke vegetables. You can smoke potatoes for sure. Peppers are excellent to smoke. The whole there's a whole thing about smoking peppers and things. So, guys, don't steer away from it. Embrace whatever it is you want to cook on for dinner, if it's meat wise, and then smoke it. Now, I want to go to. I know we talk about brisket quite often on this show, but brisket is a staple. Let's don't forget that it is a mainstay when it comes to talking smoking meat. Brisket is king. So let's talk about Big Ron. Now, Big Ron, you did a brisket over the weekend. Am I right?
Yeah, I did a little guy over the weekend. Nothing too huge.
Let me see. I'm producing at the same time I'm talking, guys. Bear with me. So, pulling pictures.
Why we've got this brief pause, guys. Everybody that's listening, don't forget to like, share, and follow. Keep this show going. So yeah, like I said, it was just a little guy. I had a small piece left over in the freezer and trimmed the fat down on it there. It's probably a pound or two. Nothing real huge.
Okay, how big was this brisket?
Just a couple of pounds, probably 2-3 pounds.
Is that still qualified as a brisket?
The package said brisket when I trimmed that off. Yes. It doesn't have to be an $80 brisket to be a brisket.
Joe, that's a brisket for a pellet smoker.
Don't you start, John. So yeah, they were just doing some seasoning all the way around. Tips. I used two different seasonings on this one. I used the Yellowstone barbecue seasoning, just a light dusting of it because it's got some sugars in it. And then I did a heavier
Yellowstone, the TV show.
I guess. And then I've also used some Suckle Buster 1836 beef rub, which I really like. It's got a lot of pepper in it, and it seemed to produce a better bark with that. So I may do some more experimenting with that specific rub.
Okay. What did you do with your fat trimmings I see here?
I just got rid of them. There wasn't enough of them there to really render down and do any kind of a tallow or anything with them. This was going to be more of a quicker cook. I wanted to try a hotter temperature. From the last show, we were talking to the gentleman from Texas. He was talking about how he smokes his at a higher temperature. I normally do mine between 190 and 200. He was talking he does his at like 225, and I was just curious. I wanted to see what a 225 smoke would do.
225, I think, is good. I'm okay with it too. I want between 200 and 225 consistently in the chamber. But he goes a little longer than I do, which I know folks that do. I'm not saying it's a bad or not a bad thing. I think I achieve the same product in 8 to 10 hours, depending on how long it takes to finish it out, versus going that long on a smoke. That's almost an old school method in Texas where they go real deep and long on the smoke. So, so this small brisket, how long did it take you to cook it?
I cooked it. Let's see. I think 9 or 10 hours is what I did on that. Like I said, this is more of an experimental brisket. That's why I didn't want to go too big on it. I'm not going to ruin an $80 piece of meat, but I'll trash a small tip of a brisket for no problem at all. But yeah, some of the other pictures in there, you can see the bark starting to form on it about halfway through. Some of the juice is starting to render out through where I had the probes at. Then as we go through some of the pictures, you can see towards the end that we did have a decent little smoke ring penetration. I was expecting more of a penetration with it, but I think the higher temperature may have slowed the penetration down for that smoke ring with just the way a pellet smoker works. So I didn't get
Well,
as
do you think
much.
it's that, or were you rested at room temperature? And
It was room temperature when I seasoned it and put it on the grill.
I think the closer it is to room temperature, the warmer the meat is. I think the less
ring
you're going to find. And I'll tell you that from Slow Bones, they swear by it. All right, there's a picture on the grill. We got her hooked up to the probe. Got some good smoke going. That looks pretty early on, though, right?
Yeah, that's very, very early on. I also did.
Okay, yeah. What's that there?
That is a full piece. Spam? That is a full piece of Spam. It is, and I actually took Texan's advice and I trimmed off both sides, and gave it a bit of a rougher surface. And you can definitely see I got some color in that Spam.
Yeah, it's not looking bad. How long did you leave the Spam on?
The Spam I did probably for about 5 hours.
Wow.
It's I put it on about halfway through, so about 5 hours, 4 to 5 hours. But you can see the bark forming on the brisket now. It's starting to get that nice dark, rich color to it. The Spam is definitely starting to take a glaze around the outer edges. My wife hates Spam. She loved this Spam.
Okay, now we're looking at what temperatures, chamber temperatures at this point?
225 or 220 constant.
220 constant, and you like your bark formation?
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I've got some different barks. I agree with what John was saying. I think that the rub had a lot to do with it on this one. I think the pepper content has something to do with it also.
There are those that say that. I just don't know. I've seen bark. It seems like my evaporation point or my airflow influences my bark formation more than anything else. But I'm open to suggestions. Anybody that says anything other. I tell you what, these damn these comments are loading in funny from the top and the bottom. Let's go back to Revolt Republic. Chicken quarters are cheap and quick and quick to learn how to smoke. He is 100% correct. Chicken quarters are cheap. and they're a great thing to smoke. You can do some experiments on them. He's absolutely right. That's about the best suggestion I've seen all night. We've got
Chicken
B.
smokes differently too.
Say again.
Chicken does smoke differently though.
Chicken does smoke different, but it's definitely a product that you can put on that's not going to cost a lot of money and put a good smoke out there to put it out for dinner. B says she's waiting to fall because she's a sissy in the heat. Well, you got to do like John now, B. John set up all night to make that pork happen. And of course, we got Tri-Tip is King. I don't know who that's from. Maybe James. He's a West Coaster. He's going to sell us off on some Tri-Tip, but I'm willing to try some Tri-Tip as well.
Don't knock it till you smoke it.
Okay, well, let's talk about let's go with the elephant in the room. That's the Spam. So it comes off, and what happens with it?
Wrapped in aluminum foil, let it set for a little bit, and just cool in the aluminum foil in the house. That was the best way to keep my wife from trying to eat it. Then it went onto a plate, sliced it. There's some pictures in there of some sliced Spam. It came out really, really, really good. I was surprised. There wasn't any kind of.
What wood chip did you use?
I used a combination. I was actually finishing off the bag that I used for the cheesecake. So this is a hickory apple blend, and that also may be why I didn't get as deep of a smoke ring either, because I was using a hickory and apple blend versus a mesquite for the brisket.
All right. So, question on your thermometer probe, and I'm asking because I don't know. Why is it not more in the center?
It's actually, you really can't tell at that angle. It's actually about a 45-degree angle, and that's not the primary probe that I'm using. On the back end of that, you can't see it. I have my other probe in there, my Bluetooth one.
Okay.
It didn't save the cook, otherwise I would upload the graph and everything from the cook too. But my good thermometer's on the other side, and it's in the center. I mean, smack dab center in that meat.
Okay. So on the Spam, did you skim that's like the top layer off? Like,
I did. I took a very thin layer on both sides. I didn't do the outer edges. I just took the top and the bottom off, the biggest section, and then I smoked those also. Those have already been eaten in this picture. But yeah, I cooked it like that under the of what Texan said of doing that. Maybe the rougher surface would help with coloring and penetration. I don't know if it's so much changed the penetration. It may have, but it definitely helped with coloring.
Did you put anything on the Spam or just let it smoke raw?
Nope, that is just straight smoke. I went with a low sodium Spam versus a standard Spam. I'm not big on the salt, but I went with a lower sodium. I find that the lower sodium meats seem to cook a little bit better like this. Even if I do a corned beef brisket, I'll do a corned beef low sodium, and it seems to cook a little bit better than if I go with the standard one.
Okay, so what did we get out of smoke on it? Did it taste just like Spam that had been grilled?
No. You could definitely taste the smoke. You just couldn't see the smoke. It was the same color all the way through, but it had a great flavor to it. Still retained some of the juiciness. So, like I said, my wife's not a big fan of Spam, and by not a fan, she don't eat it. But she was actually wanting to do a couple of these at one time and chop them up into small cubes and do them in something like umami or some fried rice or something like that. It came out so good.
Now I know people like eat Spam at different temperatures. What was your temperature on it?
So I didn't probe the Spam since it's already cooked anyways. I'm not real concerned about temperature. If I cook Spam, I'll throw it in the pan sliced up just to get a crisp edge on it. This came off the grill. It was probably 190, 200 degrees. And then it rested in the house for about a half an hour. So probably right around 150.
And I'm sorry, you may have already said, but how long did you let it smoke?
About 4 to 5 hours.
Oh, okay.
And that was at your 225, is that correct?
As at 220, yeah.
220.
Yeah. I can't get the halves. I can do 220 and 230. It won't give me that 225. But then I also smoked it on the right side of the chamber, which is closest to the stack where it's going to be the warmest. And I'm going to get the most smoke flow over the meat at that point.
Cool.
Okay, so did any of the Spam survive? Was it all?
No, there was no surviving Spam.
you said Miss Big Ron's not a big fan of Spam, but she likes this Spam.
She liked this Spam. Smoked. She is not a big fan of Spam, and by not a big fan, she will not eat it, and she ate this.
Okay, I'm going to call that a win. Range, did you ever go back and re-smoke yours to get a better run on it, or you just gonna have to wash and try another day?
No, it was a busy weekend. We had a family party, and there was you probably saw my live. I was trying to do a live of the drag show and car show here in town, and it was chaos. I didn't have a chance to throw anything on, but this gives me hope. I still think I'm going to try some burnt ends. Honestly, I think I'm going to cube it up, throw it in an aluminum tray, maybe throw some kind of brown sugar or something on there, and try to make some kind of a burnt end side dish or something.
Okay, no, I'm interested in that. I'm also interested in using it maybe in fried rice. I thought that was a good idea on the spam. All right, let's go
Yeah,
back to
that could be really good.
let's go back to our bride. That's the brisket. We're talking about how good the spam was, but there's a brisket on this grill. How did we come out with that? Did our bark turn good?
Yeah, bark turned good. Good flavor to the bark. Like I said, in some of the other pictures, you can see some smoke penetration. They definitely got into the meat. Good flavors throughout.
I'll be honest with you, I'm having trouble getting the pictures here. Maybe this one is it. Let's see. No, I don't see any of the finished product cut. But that's okay. I mean, but it was a good brisket. You were able to pull out the you had a smoke ring, you had bark, had smoke all the way through.
Oh yeah, very good, very good. Give me just 1 second here, Joe.
All right. And folks, we're a little bit short on content because we just did a show on this on Wednesday. This we knew we were going to be a little short on this one, which is all good because it actually backs up here in 4 minutes. The president is going to address the nation, and we're going to run that through and put the video and audio up here on the show. Might probably have some things to talk about once he's done, but that's probably going to take up our second hour on this show. But I want to go back and talk about. We talk about brisket a lot. We talk about beef. I'm in Texas, and that's all you can hear me say: beef, 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 beef. If it's a rib, it needs to be beef. If you're smoking, it needs to be beef. And I'm going to stand by that. But John's proven that you can take a pork roast or a pork butt, and you could smoke that into be something that's actually delicious, and that if you have guests, they're going to love. Um, uh, Revolt Republic brings up an excellent idea. You get the cheap thighs, chicken thighs. Smoke some wings on your grill. There's a lot of things you can do without spending $70-$80 on a piece of meat to smoke it. Now, a tri-tip is a much smaller piece than a brisket. I think it's very popular out west. I've personally never smoked a tri-tip, but it is something that I will be smoking soon to because I'm curious about it. But also, Jason, you smoke tri-tips often, don't you?
Yeah, I do probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 a year. I'll smoke them, but it's probably one of my favorite cuts of beef, to be honest with you. If you do it right, it's a really good cut of beef.
Well, tell me why it's one of your favorite cuts.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, it's a sirloin and is it prime rib in there? And somebody tell me what, I don't know the cuts of meat, but there's 3 different cuts of meat that go into the tri-tip, and they're all very good cuts of meat. Like I said, when you the grains run opposite, so you'll have grains running one way on one side of the kind of the boomerang look of a tri-tip, and the grains running the other way, and that's just from the cut of meat. But it's not a cheap cut of meat either. It's I think I had a 3-pound tri-tip, and I think I spent $70 on it. So it's not cheap, but
Yeah, actually, that's quite a bit more expensive than a brisket.
I also live in Minnesota. Keep that in mind.
Touch-eyed cows up there.
Yeah, spendy beef up here. No, but I think you'll really enjoy it, Joe. If you do it, you're going to be hooked on it.
Well, now I'm taking pause. I don't know if I can afford to be hooked on it at $60 for 3 pounds. That's quite expensive. What's your experience with it in Idaho, Steve? I know you do it a lot. James, you're familiar with it as well. What's your
Yeah.
experience with it, Steve?
That one I smoked about a month ago or so. It was awesome. That's actually the first time I ever smoked a tri-tip, and I would totally do it again. It came out well. I'm gonna change how I do it. I made the mistake. I think I put a little bit of olive oil on it and then put my spice on. I tried to use the olive oil as the binder, and I think I made a tragic mistake. It was still good, and I still got a really good smoke ring, but I think I missed out on some of the flavor. And so next go around, it's just gonna be pepper, salt, maybe a little bit of garlic, and that's it. Just see how she goes.
Steve, I use W sauce as a binder.
That's good to know.
Yeah, that seems to work. I use W sauce on pretty much everything for a binder.
You're talking about Worcestershire?
Yeah, I call it W because I can't pronounce that.
I probably should call it W as well.
Worcestershire.
Is that in Massachusetts?
But no, it's a great binder.
I'll have to try that too, because it is awesome. And Joe, I'm telling you, once you smoke one, and I don't know, you might be able to find one at a little bit more reasonable cost down where you're at, down in cattle country, but it's pretty tasty.
We're definitely going to give it a shot. I'm not afraid of using oils as a binder. They do work well. I think when you use an olive oil, in particular olive oil, you do need to come up a little bit on your temperature. You want to get more of a rapid evaporation effect when you've got olive oil on the meat. I tend to have a lack of bark growth with olive oil. Now, vegetable oils seem to do better than olive oil. I've never tried avocado oil, but I think it might be the same since it has such a high smoke temperature that you're not reaching those type of temperatures in there. And what you want to be able to do is evaporate any moisture on the surface of that meat, evaporate it away. If you're not evaporating it away, you're stopping the smoking process of pushing smoke deep into the meat, pulling it in, and you're also stopping the bark formation that should be occurring there if you don't achieve the evaporation. Still get a tasty piece of meat. You still get to taste something that you can't get at a restaurant necessarily, but you're not getting the process is not happening, is what I'm trying to say, if you don't achieve some evaporation. But let me go to James. James is screaming tri-tip. He's screaming tri-tip in the comments over here. So I want to hear some James comment on a tri-tip.
Well, like I said, my experience with smoking is fairly limited, but one of the things that I did try to do my first year in college off by myself was I went and bought a tri-tip.
Hey, folks, let's go to the presidential address. Sorry.
Yep.
Just popped up.
I spoke with him last night. I'm grateful. He's doing well, and Jill and I keep him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victims who was killed. Corey was a husband, a father, a volunteer firefighter, a hero, sheltering his family from those bullets. We should all hold his family and all those injured in our prayers. Earlier today, I spoke about an ongoing investigation. We do not know the motive of the shooter yet. We don't know his opinions or affiliations. We don't know whether he had help or support, or if he communicated with anyone else. Law enforcement professionals, as I speak, are investigating those questions. Tonight, I want to speak to what we do know. A former president was shot, an American citizen killed, while simply exercising his freedom to support the candidate of his choosing. We must not go down this road in America. We've traveled before throughout our history. Violence has never been the answer. Whether it's with members of Congress of both parties being targeted and shot, or a violent mob attacking the Capitol on January 6th, or a brutal attack on the spouse of former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, or information and intimidation on election
sitting
officials,
at a desk is way worse.
or the kidnapping plot against the sitting governor, or an attempted assassination on Donald Trump. There's no place in America for this kind of violence, for any violence ever. Period. No exceptions. We can't allow this violence to be normalized. You know, the political record of this country has gotten very heated. It's time to cool it down. We all have a responsibility to do that. Yes, we have deeply felt strong disagreements. The stakes in this election are enormously high. I've said it many times. that the choice in the selection we make in this election is going to shape the future of America and the world for decades to come. I believe that with all my soul. I know that millions of my fellow Americans believe it as well. And some have a different view as to the direction our country should take. Disagreement is inevitable in American democracy. It's part of human nature. But politics must never be a literal battlefield, and God forbid, a killing field. I believe politics ought to be an arena for peaceful debate, to pursue justice, to make decisions guided by the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. We stand for an America, not of extremism and fury, but of decency and grace. All of us now face the time of testing as the election approaches. And the higher the stakes, the more fervent the passions become. This places an added burden on each of us to ensure that no matter how strong our convictions, we must never descend into violence. The Republican convention will start tomorrow. I have no doubt they'll criticize my record and offer their own vision for this country. I'll be traveling this week making the case for our record and the vision, my vision of the country, our vision. I'll continue to speak out strongly for our democracy, stand up for our Constitution and the rule of law, to call for action at the ballot box, no violence on our streets. That's how democracy should work. We debate and disagree. We compare and contrast the character of the candidates, the records, the issues, the agenda, the vision for America. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box. You know, that's how we do it, at the battle box, not with bullets. The power to change America should always rest in the hands of the people, not in the hands of would-be assassin. You know, the path forward through competing visions of the campaign should always be resolved peacefully, not through acts of violence. You know, we're blessed to live in the greatest country on earth, and I believe that with every soul, every power of my being. So tonight, I'm asking every American to recommit, to make America, think about it. What's made America so special? Here in America, everyone must be treated with dignity and respect, and hate must have no safe harbor. Here in America, we need to get out of our silos, where we only listen to those with whom we agree, where misinformation is rampant, where foreign actors fan the flames of our division to shape the outcomes consistent with their interests, not ours. Let's remember, here in America, while unity is the most elusive of all goals right now, nothing is more important for us now than standing together. We can do this. You know, from the beginning, our founders understood the power of passion. So they created democracy that gave reason and balance a chance to prevail over brute force. That's the American we must be. An American democracy where arguments are made in good faith. An American democracy where the rule of law is respected. An American democracy where decency, dignity, fair play aren't just quaint notions, but living, breathing realities. We owe that to those who come before us, to those who gave their lives for this country. We owe that to ourselves. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren. Look, let's never lose sight of who we are. Let's remember we are the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. God bless you all. May God protect our troops.
All right,
Kind of an odd closing.
Yeah. And what was he talking about, the battle box?
I don't know, but if I'm going to the battle box, I'm going to take me a box of cartridges as well.
And my AR-15. Good grief.
I was waiting for him to...
And he's reading a teleprompter.
Yeah, I was curious to what the whole purpose of this little address was, and I think it's just try to steal some of the limelight and some political clout from the situation that happened yesterday.
Well, let's be honest. He's worried now because this just elevated Trump's possibility of winning dramatically. He's nervous. He's nervous that he's going to lose. I actually watched some polling data not long before I jumped on here. And this kid, I don't know what his political affiliations. He actually sound pretty open, both sides. And Trump was way ahead on all the polling data that he had found for this upcoming election, way ahead. And he even brought this was, I think he posted a video this morning, because he mentions the rally and the assassination attempt. He's like, all this is pre-assassination attempt. He's like, I have a feeling that that's even going to go greater in Trump's favor come election time. And I agree. That iconic picture of him standing up with the flag in the background, that's going to be a forever image, an iconic image for perseverance for this country. I think it's awesome.
Well, and the last time they tried to assassinate Republican Reagan, he won all but one state. And I think they're afraid of another scenario like that.
Yeah, but that was at the beginning of his term. I don't know how much of that assassination attempt held over to his popularity in the second election which is the one you talked about. His second run was the landslide. So I don't know how much the assassination had to play in that. But I do agree in this that if Trump plays this right, this will carry him over the finish line. I do think he does need to come out hard. He needs to come out unifying. We need to be unified as Americans, and I'm for that. I don't think Trump is the guy. I mean, Biden is the guy to do it. Don't think he's done it once. I don't think he's tried to do it. I think the only way he wins is keeping us divided. But I also believe that even he and his advisors know that after yesterday, any chance of a victory is slipping away.
And Trump's a frickin' baller. After getting shot at with his ear, portion of his ear missing. He's
okay, hold up. The man didn't get shot at. He got shot.
Okay,
yeah,
you're right. You're right.
Blood coming from his ear from a bullet contact.
Well, as CNN, as Babylon B said, Trump clumsily falls into a bullet passing by. He's a baller, dude. He's like, I'm gonna go to the fights, dude. Baller move. And I'm telling you, he's gonna get some kudos from a lot of folks from him standing up. If any other president did that, other than maybe Roosevelt, right? He got shot in the chest. And he's like, I'm gonna finish my damn speech. That doesn't happen very often. There's not a lot of people with that kind of resilience. It sucks that we had some casualties. There's that firefighter, former fire chief that passed away. That sucks. That sucks a lot. But I don't know. This is a big turning point, I think, for the United States. And I spent way too much time on Twitter yesterday. You guys probably noticed. It's an event we probably should be journaling and paying attention to, because I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to come from this.
Well, interestingly enough, and I always try to double check if I can, stuff that I read on the internet. Our good friend Harry Sisson, he had posted yesterday that the guy was Republican, and I was like, I gotta go check. And sure enough, he is registered Republican. So that makes me wonder what was going on. And I'm not saying that it's right. By no means it's not right. No, I mean, I don't care who you are. Don't do that shit. But I'm like, what was your motive?
Well, he also donated to progressive causes, and it is a common tactic for Democrats. So you saw this in 2022, where the Democrats would
okay. I did not know that.
Primaries. They'll switch over for the primaries and vote Republican, and then they'll switch back over and vote Democrat in the actual election. So it's pretty easy to switch. So yeah, I don't know how much stock I put in his party affiliation.
I like your plate.
Looks muy picante.
Yeah, he cut that live feed off. Pink plate.
Yeah, you guys, what do you guys think is going to happen at the RNC? You have any?
I don't know anymore.
I've already seen reports coming out that supposedly the Secret Service is not stepping up security at the RNC.
Well, I guess Biden, like the Secret Service, the lady who's in charge of the Secret Service, she's off on some conference in another country, and yeah, Biden has denied additional Secret Security or Secret Service. The denial happened several weeks ago, but yeah.
So there's a little misconception there I think on the Secret Service. So I've done Mike Pence, McCain, and I think one of the Bushes. So what? Let's say they're coming to your city and you're in law enforcement. I would get a phone call literally 24 hours that this person is showing up for whatever, and the Secret Service puts a butt ton of work onto the local law enforcement. The Secret Service basically manages the general location around the politician coming. The perimeter was our responsibility. So I think it's even the traffic route taken from the airport to the location that was done by our state patrol. So I think there's a lot put on local law enforcement when these visits come. So it's not just all on Secret Service. So, and the amount of time they give us to prep for it is literally minimal. And I get the surprise tactic to it to get somebody to come, but in the same breath, when you're looking at a dignitary coming to your city and you have 24 hours to make it safe, it's not all on Secret Service is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Most of the security is taken care of by the local PD, but it seems like it would have been a good idea for Biden to, at least as a good faith gesture, offered more Secret Service, because Trump had asked for it a couple weeks ago, and he was denied, just like the Democrats denied RFK Secret Service. So he's having to shell out millions of dollars for his own security.
Did you guys think that the response from the Secret Service detail was a little disheveled? Like, I understand that it was like an emergency, right? And sometimes your brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to in an emergency, but you could hear all the conversation from the mic, from the podium. It was all still, recording the audio, and it just seemed kind of disheveled to me. Like, there was chaos, and they were assessing the situation. But I kind of would think in my mind, or at least the way I perceive the Secret Service, is like the best of the best, and they're practicing and drilling for situations just like this. And in my mind, I was thinking, why isn't it going smoother and more systematic and regimented to get him to the car? What do you guys think?
I agree with you, Steve. And I watched it. I've been working my ass off the last 3 days, so I haven't had much time to look. But what I watched was I think I listened to the tape, and there was definitely more than one shot that rang out. And I think I counted 5. But anyway, the thought that I had was the response to the moment. I get tackling him, covering him. So you got cover and you got concealment. The thing that I thought lacked was the pushback. I wanted to see 15 guns surrounding that pile, and I saw one from and I mean all directions. That's the part that I thought was lacking. Was the cover was good, but the aggressive response was bad. If this was an up close and personal shot, you gotta have an aggressive response to it as well as a suppressive response. I think they got the suppressive response fine. I did not like I want more weapons around the ex-president there in all directions.
And if you watch some other videos, there are some other videos. I think it's called the Cat Team, where they're all tacked out in black gear, and then some dudes in some OD stuff came up as well. So that was pretty quick. As soon as they got the president down, it was before he left the podium. There were some dudes packing some heat up there. But you got to watch more video than what CNN was showing.
Yeah. And I've got some opinions on that. I think overall the Secret Service did a pretty good job. I won't talk about them leaving a vantage point unchecked, 150 meters away from where the president, straight line of sight from where the president's speaking. I think there might have been there's a problem with that. But they're trained on these high profile protectees. is that Trump did exactly what he was supposed to. He went down. They went and covered his body. They've got vests on. They're literally they're there to take a bullet for the president at that point if the shooting were to continue. They call it bunkering him. And they did bunker him. If you'll listen to the audio, you'll hear these earpieces that the Secret Service is wearing. This is what it's for. They hear that the shooters engaged and down. So you hear that one of them announced to everyone else the shooter's down. That's when they start to prepare him to get him on his feet. But they're also waiting on that the bus is that they call it the bus, but his vehicle's ready to go. So they have to go wait for a vehicle to get there. That they don't move him until break that cover in the bunker they have till they have him, a place to take him to cover again. And I've also been in a debate today about the female Secret Service agent that you see as they come down the stairs. She's literally hugging his chest. She's got him kind of wrapped up, and she's putting her body next to his body from underneath his arm across and her head across his chest. That is the proper way. She's covering his vital organs so that she takes a shot instead of him. He wasn't very cooperative. If he'd been more cooperative, they would have had his head down, and you would have had Secret Service agents with their torso covered with ballistic body armor, is basically covering everything that you could damage him with to get him to the car. So I think Secret Service did a pretty good job. I don't know that they did a great job on covering that vantage point. I haven't done a lot. I've done 2 details, one in the Army, one as a cop on a high profile protectee or dignitary. I do know that they'll check roof accesses to make sure they're locked, and then there's a timeline before the dignitary or the protectee is going to be exposed. There's a timeline that they go back and they check these again shortly before. If they don't have them locked and blocked and checked, then they actually put someone there to watch it to prevent and deny access to vantage points for taking a sniper shot, which it clearly didn't happen in this case. But I don't see a lot of fault in the Secret Service. I think they handled it well. They got there very quickly. They bunkered him up. They assessed him. They were there prepared for medical care, even in that bunkered position on the stage. And we did see heavy guns. You had the heavy guns that were your left and right flank, but one guy stayed in the front. But he did cover well. You did have your cat team that I think was moving around in other places we couldn't see the camera. So I'm not going to fault them too much on that. What I saw, I was I had some confidence in. I do not have confidence in leaving the vantage points unchecked and exposed.
Yeah, and that is something I had a question about because there was only one building next to that. Like if you look at the aerial, there's one building. It's a big building, granted, but you see a video where people are shouting. I don't know if they came with him or they knew him from town, but they're shouting the guy's name, like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Get down! What are you doing?" That went on for about 45 seconds. Like you would have thought that would draw someone's attention. And when you only have one building or one rooftop to secure, it seems like they should have been watching that. Like it takes a while for him to climb up there and get set up. But one question I did have was what's up with the shoes? Because Trump was saying, "Let me put my shoes on." Like, did they get pulled off? Did they fall off? Is that procedure? What's up with that?
It's not procedure, but it's not uncommon that the man goes down and people are jumping on top of him that they kick the shoe off. So I don't see anything in that.
Yeah,
They
those
were
are just
probably
like slip-on penny loafers.
no, they were probably those gold Nikes or whatever that everybody's trying to buy.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to leave them behind. They're worth a lot of money.
They're like $14,000 shoes. He wasn't going to leave that shit behind.
So I have a thought, and this might sound kind of stupid, but I've been pondering it for quite a few years now. Why, when these dignitaries go out and they speak, are they setting the stage up? You could harden that stage pretty quick. You could make a cover position pretty easily. And I look at, you have somebody like Trump who probably has a lot of people that want to see him assassinated. You put him out on a pedestal. You can make that pedestal safe. You can make that stage safe. Why aren't they doing that? That's the one thing that, and I'm tying this into like when we harden schools and we keep kids safe. why isn't that same philosophy being approached to a person with people that want to see him not alive? Beyond somebody throwing their body in front of a bullet, why not get in front of it? And it's just a thought that I had, that I think there is a way to make that presentation both publicly attractive, that they can speak their mind and they can do their rally and they can talk, but in the same breath, you can get in front of a threat um, by putting some tools there to prevent shots like this from a long ways away. Just thinking out loud, I just don't understand why they're not going that direction.
I
it's
agree
great.
with you on the point. Well, real quick, I agree with you on that point because I seen a map of how the stage was done, and the step or the rafters behind him to the left and to the right, that the line of sight was obscured just a touch, maybe enough to where the shooter didn't have a good line of sight, not a perfect line of sight, but good enough. But there was a shot that they put out where you see one of the stands just barely gets in the line of sight of the shot. I think you're absolutely right. If they just move that literally left, right, whichever way you're facing it over, he doesn't have a clear line of sight of President Trump. And also, I give kudos to the officer. I think this is confirmed, where officer came up onto the roof, distracted the shooter, didn't have his weapon out, just was climbing up the ladder. Shooter put a rifle to his face. Officer came back down, and then the hastily shots were hit, and then the sniper took him out. So I give the cop some kudos of going up there, even if he did or did not know what was going on. He went up there and had a rifle pointed in his face, and probably got shocked by that, came back down the ladder, and then went back up. But then by that time, the shooter was already taken out by the sniper. But I agree with you, Jason. If they would have moved the stand to the left a little bit more, you obscure that line of sight of President Trump.
So, Jason, one of our guys went on to work for Secret Service and to Clinton's detail, and I actually asked him that one time. Accessibility. They want it to appear that in that case, the president, or in this case, the former president, is accessible. Not that he actually is, but it's the visual of accessibility. I'm like that make, because look what they do for the Pope. I mean, they put these ballistic panels up. But it is, to answer your question, that's what I was told. Accessibility.
I was going to say something along those lines, John, about the stage. I know for when they're in the hotel room and stuff, they have portable bulletproof glass they put in front of sliding glass doors, and I think that may be what we're going to probably start seeing happen now, is large sheets of glass go in front of the president so he can still be seen, but he'll be somewhat protective. And Vet, to what you said, so one of two things happened: either that cop went up on that roof and saw him and didn't make a radio call, or that cop went up on that roof and they ignored his radio call. So one of the two things happened, because if a radio call went up, they had somebody on a roof outside the perimeter with a gun, everything should have been shut down.
Yeah, I would have thought that if it did go out, Trump would have been off stage in a hurry, right? They would have ushered him off the stage and canceled the event right away. It's still, I feel like there was a excuse me, there was some kind of a lapse in security protocols there that probably should have been addressed. But I wasn't there. I'm not part of the detail. I don't know what SOPs were missed or not written at all.
Jason, you said you've dealt with this before. Does Secret Service monitor the local police station, so if that call went out, the Secret Service would hear it?
I was just going to say that when Pence came, there was a delay in communication between law enforcement and Secret Service. So it could have been a communication thing. Again, you guys are telling me stuff that I'm hearing for the first time, but from my experience, we're not, law enforcement's not tied into the Secret Service channel. So it was basically, I was the lieutenant in charge of law enforcement. They would notify me, then it would be a phone call to the agent in charge. So that's a lot of time there. So maybe one thing they could do is everybody get on the same radio channel and work as a team versus these two separate teams. And trust me, Secret Service does a great job. They don't fuck around. They come in and they do this and that, but their scope, from what I've been involved in, was more close up, and law enforcement was more of the wider range perimeter stuff. That's what I've seen on details that I've been involved in. So take it for, and I also want to, I remember when the Pope was in a parade and he was in a ballistic bubble. You know, I'm not talking, it doesn't have to look like that. Yeah, it doesn't have to look like that.
Yeah.
Just take away line of sight, take away, you know, areas of threats, provide cover on that stage, and you can make it look good and also be protective. But yeah, again, just a thought.
I give a little bit of the delay to get him off the stage to Trump himself. Him hearing, I mean, he's underneath the pile. Everybody's protecting him. He hears them say the shooter's down, you know, and the man's sharp. He probably got up and, you know, he was like, no, I'm going to, you know, take this moment to show that I am strong and nothing's going to stop me. And, you know, and he did his displays, you know, with his fists and doing all that, which maybe caused a little bit of delay. And then the fact that he was asking for his shoes, that could have been I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Just, you know, the adrenaline rushing, the whole, I just got shot at, you know, mentality. And it's just something simple that he just focused on, like, oh, I need my shoes. I need my shoes. You know, it just drew him to a calmness, and he put on his shoes, and then he went on about his business and, you know, did that nice display, which is iconic. That picture of him at the end of the stage with his fist up, the American flag with the crane overhead, that's going to be like you guys were talking about earlier with the Reagan, with the Secret Service agent with the Uzi. It's going to be iconic forever, for decades.
It also doesn't help that Trump's like, what, 6'5"? He's tall. And so, I mean, a lot of those agents might have been struggling with just his size because he's a big dude.
That is true. He you don't realize how tall he is until he was towering over his own detail. You know, it's just like, wow, that man's pretty tall. He literally heads and shoulders above everybody else. That's crazy.
Well, look how big Barron is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a tall kid. Barron is for sure.
He's almost, what, 6'8", I think is what they said.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know. Is he 6'8", really?
Can you imagine buying that kid's suits? Holy smokes.
He's towering his dad.
I tell you what, folks, we're going to cut the smoke show, unless anybody's got anything else to add to this. We're going to cut the smoke show a little bit early tonight, just because we interrupted with Biden and kind of changed our topic of what this show's normally about. But we will do an after party. Give us about 15 minutes after the stream ends and catch us on X. We'll kick up an after party, and we can take the discussion any way, anywhere, any place anybody else wants to go.
6'9" to be specific.
6'9". That's pretty damn tall. That's pretty damn tall.
I see he just posted, Barron did, a message from my dad. Pretty cool.
So, do I talk about tri-tip in the after party?
You know what? Let's talk about tri-tip in the after party. I think John wants everybody in the studio to stick around for a minute, but folks, we are gonna call this a show.
I just picked some peppers for the smoke for my peppers and stuff. Yeah, I've got some.
You don't like him?
I'm smoking more.
And some pretty pink plates.
Yeah, we saw the plate.
I refuse to answer on the grounds of main attempt to criminal. You got any business?
I refuse to answer on the grounds of attempt to criminal.
You have any profession?